WMD Act was to link it all up. It was to sort of bring a single legislation that would cover a variety of different activities, but also legislation that we already had, but which were not, which are not, working together. So that was one of the purpose of the WMD Act. As to whether it's now working together, I'm not sure. That's there's one thing between legislation and actually.
Sir, I wanted to distinguish again the plea bargaining.
Very simple reason. A few other people.
No, see, sir. In America, there is a manufacturing of weapons by private persons that is not rampantly in India. In America, protecting their interests.
It's not true in America either.
America is protecting their interests.
There are no private actors who are making WMDs anywhere in the world.
No, sir, what I am saying, that legislation in America.
Which legislation?
In America, state legislation,
yes.
what I am saying.
Yes.
There is a provision for plea bargaining even to the offences.
I think you've made the point on plea bargaining. I want to take
a what I said, there should be a pressure on the part of the other nations on America also, because otherwise those weapons will come from America and will go on the entire world.
Plea bargain away when they are caught in the
what peace is threatened? What peace is threatened? I am on the point of threatening the peace.
I'm bringing you a factual situation of American law because I work with them very extensively, including with the State Department. I can tell you that the United States does not allow for plea bargaining of people convicted and accused of WMD-related offences. In fact, the offence, the punishment that they give is substantially higher than a comparable crime which was, say, you were going to threaten the lives of 100 people with a civil act, an automobile or something like that. The punishment that you might get is, say, 5 years to 10 years. If you're caught with a capacity or a chemical precursor that could kill 100 people on the other side, which is a chem weapon offense, you will probably end up going to jail for 25 years without any plea bargaining. So this is not the factual legal situation in the US that they are allowing for and condoning plea bargaining to bring down the offense or the punishment for WMD-related offenses. That is not the case, and in almost all countries of the world that are moving forward with 1540 and others, you see that the national submissions started, I can tell you, as I said, starting from being at the creation. The first reports were 45-page reports from Germany, a very nice tight report, to a one-paragraph report by a country quoting a law from 1873, Environmental Protection Act type of things. What has happened is we have been involved in some different ways in improving the kinds of questionnaire that went out. Countries are now being asked in their subsequent national submissions not only to report on what exists in terms of laws, but your capacity to implement, your capacity to enforce. And so all laws within countries are getting harmonized. I have just finished 2 years worth of our work in Philippines, and I'm going back again in 2 weeks' time. But they have passed yesterday, in principle, the draft of the legislation that we have put together. And so, if you read the Filipino law now, it is very similar to the high standards of protection and punishment against WMD offences that you have in Singapore. You have it now in Malaysia. So there is a rising national standard. And in fact, I work with a CSCAP, a Council for Security Cooperation, which is a 21 government body, and they are actually raising not only national but regional standards of compliance. So you do see this very clear rising standard, and as you heard Dr. Siddhartha mention, harmonization across these countries. Because, you know, for your trader, I'll just stop with this on that matter. If your trader is submitting a document in Swahili in an export declaration, which is a 7-page declaration, and the Mumbai customs guy has never seen a declaration like that, it will take him an awful lot of time. So it impedes and delays trade. If there are problems, he might hold it back. There are demerit charges that go up with that. So what countries are now doing is they are taking the 6 templates of shipping exporters declaration that are available on the World Customs Organization website. And most countries, 95% of commerce is happening using those types of templates. So countries are increasingly trying to harmonize, both for free trade reasons, expediting trade reasons, but also because the responsibility if you make a mistake is being passed down to the trader. So they are also improving their own standards of compliance, and the government is saying, so long as you can self-police yourself up to these standards, we will be more of a referee watching a football game. I'll blow the whistle if there is a foul, but otherwise you can play, rather than be a policeman. So that's really where the law and the linkage with business is going. Other questions? I just want to take a series of 2, 3, 4 questions and see if you can answer them quickly to get more questions.
The world seems to be depending too much on United States for this kind of anti-proliferation proliferation. Now, if you look at what A.Q. Khan did from Holland, he was caught, and it was in when the U.S. knew, and they, in fact, the allegation is that they helped him escape from that country. And now, what he has told, what he did in Pakistan, and thereafter what has come out only yesterday, that he has told that even China supplied them uranium and this and that, and nobody is able to do anything. What do you say to that? How effective is this legislation?
That is Rajesh's statement. I have followed AQ for 20-some years. Did you want to respond?
No.
Only to first factually correct to you, he had learned and spirited away secrets from Urenco, the lab in Netherlands. He was tried in absentia in 1979 and convicted in a court of law in Netherlands. The United States' fault, and there is grave mistakes that they have made and fault, is to not catch him throughout the 80s and the 90s when they should have caught him, when there was ample evidence of what he was doing. AQ had people from father to son helping him through 20 years, in Sweden, in UK, in Germany, in Switzerland, Malaysia, and so on. They finally brought it in 2003, brought it to light, the US side. So yes, there are a lot to blame on that subject. And European Union countries and Dubai as a board were shown to be not very accurate at all in these things. But to come back to your original framing, the United States is not, it takes the leadership in framing a number of these legislations or initiatives, but it does not dominate the outcome. India has had the opportunity, and India, I've seen in global negotiations, takes a very principled or a leadership stance and is actually very effective when it wants to. What we have to decide is, do we want to be reactive to always a US or European Union-led initiative, or do we want to actually frame something? What happens is, I'll say this to you, sometimes we act like a trade union leader, but we want a seat at the business table. In other words, we are speaking on behalf of the non-aligned world, on behalf of others. But we are also a developed world. We are both. We are developing and developed. We have technology to protect. We have things to protect of our own. When we have SAFTA, if it goes into effect, South Asia Free Trade Area, there will be a relatively free movement of people, goods and technology with all the South Asian countries. Do you think that we are in a position to allow Bangladeshi, Pakistani companies to operate out of here? We have companies from China, including Huawei company, that came to Bangalore, opened up a subsidiary, won in an open bid a contract to provide a low security clearance to an algorithm that they were writing for the Indian Air Force. The government of India ran an investigation and could not prove anything wrong with doing this. I had the misfortune of training the Chinese, including this company, so I know what they are up to. And they were operating in India, and they're still operating in India. So I go back to this question of India needs to identify what are India's needs and interests, make a technical assessment of what are our threats to national security and other aspects, and lead either through domestic law or framing a resolution with international law. Believe me, on most yardsticks of power, India ranks in the top 5 to top 10 in the world, out of 200 countries. We have a great deal of respect in the international, at the UN and other bodies. We can frame it. We don't have to be reacting to a US-led initiative all the time. We just have to know what it is our position, whether it's Kyoto, whether it's Copenhagen, whether it's any aspect of it. Other questions, thoughts?
What about the Israeli method of taking action immediately?
Better late than never.
I don't know how much I can share in an open meeting like this, but let me say that Iraq, for example, Israel bombed the Osirak reactor in Iraq. They have extensive investigations of the Iranian program, and that's why Iranians recently, 2 months ago, admitted that they have another reactor, not just the one in Natanz, but one in Qom, which is built with reinforcements to withstand a preemptive strike by Israel or the US. Israel, India and the US have actually discussed preemptive strikes on Pakistani nuclear facilities. I am going into a very sensitive area. All I will mention here to you is that these discussions have taken place to look at the possibility of whether that can be done. And they've been given up. because I'll not reveal numbers to you, but a certain percentage of the facilities cannot be taken out through pay interest. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, it's all.
India launched a spy satellite for the Israelis, because the Israeli spy satellite couldn't be launched by the United States for reasons separate. I won't go into the details of that. And it was done immediately after, I think 2 days after Parliament adjourned sine die for obvious reasons before Parliament meets again. This is completely outside the ambit of discourse. So it's not as if, this is why I'd like to bring back the point that I was raising and suggesting to all of you that this triangular relationship between technology, national security and foreign policy will become a subject of considerable complexity in legal terms here, not only within India but also in our international discourse and in matters of international law and international discourse and international relations. And the number of people who have even a vague familiarity in our country at this point of time of this triangle can really be counted on one hand. There will be need, both at the national level and at the level of agencies and companies, a much greater awareness of this triangular relationship. And I would urge that this issue be made a subject for at least an elective at the National Law School.
Thank you. And with that, sadly, this is all the time we were permitted. So let me bring this to a close. To tell you that both the ICJ, Dr. Adish Agarwal and people, and I are in conversations. I am doing a panel related to this subject at the IAEA and NATO in Vienna in January, and then followed up with a collaborative partnership of a similar program in Atlanta at the end of February, early March. But those are examples to tell you that this issue is very much being followed through. And as Dr. Siddhartha said, this presents a rich vein of work to be done, but also important for India to create the capacity to respond to the challenges that come out of this intersection that we are talking about. All of that will, I think, create and facilitate what the PM talks about is value-added economic growth in India, which will be important for us. And that gives us the capacity to regulate so that our impeccable record of non-proliferation, as you said, is something that we have the capacity to enforce and sustain over time. That would be an enormous service that you can provide to both the country and to the international community. So I urge you to pay attention to that. But with that, let's thank our speakers and adjourn for coffee, which I know is waiting downstairs. Thank you.
Myself, Sanjeev Dhankar, preparing for judicial service. Myself, Sapni Lodhia, Government Officer, LIC, Bharat. Myself, Amit Kumar, working as a Government Officer in LIC.
आप आगे आइए जिसके आगे आइए हम जान नहीं पाएंगे तो विल नॉट बी एबल टू हियर यू
Aligarh and my friends Mr. Power and respected Chief Manager from LIC, Bahadur. Today's topic is issuance, trade and globalization. When we heard the word insurance, it gives us a view of protection and security. And in fact, this insurance is started near about 200 years back with giving a protection whenever it is needed. Earlier, there was 256 life insurance companies in India, but due to